Welcome to Witchcraft Beyond the Basics, class number 4. Last week we began working on waxing moon spells, attraction spells. So if you haven't cast your spell yet, please try to complete it while the moon is still waxing. And for this first spell, just focus your energy on the basic planetary attraction spell as given in your handout. There are some additional elements for spell casting that we're going to go over this week, and you can add those to what you're doing if you like, but they are optional. One of the most important aspects of performing any kind of magical work, especially practical magic, is the ability to visualize. Many people feel like there's some tension around the idea of visualization, worrying that they can't do it or they can't do it well enough. On one level, it is similar to what your mind does when you're listening to a story. So whatever happens when somebody's telling you a story and your eyes are closed, that is visualization. Simply allowing yourself to imagine a scene in whatever way is organic to you is what is necessary. But it's also important to keep building this ability. It's like a muscle. It is like daydreaming, but it's much more focused and disciplined than daydreaming. It's much more purposeful. With daydreaming, you allow images to come and go as they please, letting your mind wander. With magic, you do almost the opposite. You focus your mind on a specific object or image. If it does wander, you gently bring it back again and again to the main visualization. It's very normal for the mind to wander. It's nature to wander. That's just how our minds work. And when you notice that your mind is drifting away from your focus, you just gently coax it back again. It takes practice. So don't worry if it's not perfect right away. Like any skill, with practice, you get better and better at it as you go along. You need to do this visualization for magic while you're in a relaxed state, frequently called a trance. And your trance should stay intact, your body relaxed, and your mind focused all at the same time during the process. Gradually, you'll notice that your visualizations will get sharper and clearer. And as they do, your ability to affect change becomes stronger, and your sphere of influence automatically increases. To help you with your visualization process, I have included a couple of meditations. One of them is called Connecting to Your Desire. And this meditation helps to focus on allowing yourself to become attuned to your inner desire. This helps you to re-enter that state of focus much more quickly and easily. Your ability to see things clearly is often greater when considering something that you really want. This is why adolescents have laser-focused sexual desires. They have the ability to visualize what they really do want. I don't want to get inappropriate or anything, but I do want to mention that one issue with our society is that pornography and other forms of media, such as movies and video games, tends to cause our capacity for visualization to atrophy. All these media provide ready-made images, leading our minds to become passive and less imaginative. This is why excessive TV watching is often criticized for rotting the brain. There's nothing wrong with watching TV or with movies or video games. They're all wonderful. But it's important that we learn to balance all of that visual intake with activities that actually engage our own imagination facility. Reading books, listening to stories, and practicing magic are excellent ways to flex those mental muscles and get them to stop atrophying. Excessive visual stimulus can hinder the mind's ability to create images from within. So it's essential that we balance all of those visual stimuli that we get with imagination stimulating activities. It's easier to work on visualization when focusing on something that you want or something that you enjoy, rather than just abstract objects like visualizing a globe or visualizing a square. Exercises that involve visualizing specific geometric shapes, etc., can be effective, but most people find them boring and unrelated to their goals. So I find it much more helpful that you work on visualization by actually casting spells, working on what you genuinely want. That will help you to increase your visualization capabilities much faster than working on exercises for visualization. Just work on magic. Magic has always used props and tools to enhance the visualization process. Today, we'll work on a small aspect of that, and more will come next week. I use a tool called a spell board. Spell boards are great, and there are many other names for them. And there's a lot of new age and law of attraction methods that are popular called vision boards and treasure maps and things like that. And they're similar, but spell boards have unique features. These practices have ancient roots, even dating back to cave paintings. To create a spell board, you just need some very basic art supplies. Construction paper or poster board is ideal. Having a variety of planetary colors in your coloring media is very helpful as well. But you're also not limited to only using the auric colors as given in the handouts. You can use any of the colors in the palettes of your media that you enjoy. Crayons are an excellent tool for magic. They're often seen as children's tools, but drawing wax has very ancient origins, possibly as far back as ancient Greece. If you don't like crayons, you can use colored pens, paints, pastels, glitter pens, or any other coloring media that you enjoy. Get creative with your spell board. Basic art supplies are sufficient. You don't need to spend much. You can spend around $15 or $20 and have supplies that last a very long time. If you want to get fancy, you can get the more expensive stuff, glitter paints and pens and alcohol markers and all of that. But don't feel like you have to invest a lot of money in order to work this, because you don't. Just some crayons and some paper is really all you need. I prefer media that don't require long drying times and that are non-toxic in case I want to burn the board later, which is an option. Determine which planet is relevant to your spell. Start your spell board on the appropriate day and or hour for the planet that you're working with, and then start creating it. You want to start with a paper that's either white or a lighter color. For instance, for a Saturn spell, Saturn is often associated with blacks and browns and deep dark greens and things like that. So I wouldn't do a spell board that's a black board or a deep dark green or a dark brown. I would use a white spell board and then use those other colors on top of it. Now you could use a black board and draw with silver and white. You can get as creative as you want. But a white board or construction paper is a lot easier for me if I'm working with planetary colors, because then it's like a very clear palette, so they take the colors very well. Feel free to experiment with colors, especially if you have a really large crayon set or a large pen set. The first thing you want to do is draw a border around the edges in one of the planetary colors that you're working with. It is also okay to use complementary colors that look pleasing to you. For a sun spell, for instance, you might use gold glitter to create a border, but you could also add some solar symbols like the sun symbols. The border should encompass everything within it, signaling to the universe that you want to manifest something physical. So you start out with a simple border. Use any size paper you like. You want to have enough space, but you don't want it to be so big that it's this cumbersome giant poster either. So after creating the border first, then write in Theban script the basic statement of what you are manifesting within the border of your spell board. One of your handouts includes the Theban script, also known as the witch's alphabet. At the top of the page, place a clear planetary symbol of the planet you are working with. And these are also found in your handouts. Use the planetary colors when you're drawing the planetary symbol. For instance, a big orange sun symbol, or you could use a gold glitter paint to do that. Ensure there is enough contrast between your symbols and the paper, which is why I recommend using white paper. Next, include an image of what you are bringing into your life. You can use a symbol, add a color photo of what you want that you've cut out of a magazine. If you're working a spell for a specific car, you could cut a picture of that car out from a magazine or a newspaper or print it out on a color printer. Add any other meaningful pictures or symbols like images of cash to symbolize the ease of payment. Keep your spell board uncluttered with just a few pictures, your Theban script and the planetary symbol, and then obviously that border. This gives a clear vision of what you're manifesting. Very fun, very easy, not complicated. It doesn't have to be some big work of art. Nobody else is ever going to see it. However, when you look at it, it should feel magical and creative to you. It should be colorful, according to the planet you're focusing on. It should be inviting to you. It should get your creative juices flowing. It should make you feel like you're really manifesting something. A new job, a new car, a new wardrobe, a new home, whatever it is that you're working on. Once it's done, sit down with it at your altar, either after your attraction ritual or as a follow-up, and look at it. You can sit down and look at it every day until it feels like it's clicked and that it's enough. You just have to gaze at it. And then once you feel like your spell is cast, you put your spell board away until the next new moon. And on the next new moon, destroy it. Rip it up and throw it away or burn it. I don't do spell boards during the waning moon. I just keep the waxing moon spell board hidden away during that waning period. And then at the new moon, I destroy it. You can burn them, but it's not necessary. Simply bless the spell board, acknowledging that its purpose has been fulfilled, and then discard it, just like anything else that you've used and you no longer need. Spell boards are powerful tools, especially when used in conjunction with your attraction spells and incantations. This week, I've made this activity optional because I don't want you to feel pressure to buy a bunch of art supplies or to create a spell board if that's not something that's interesting to you. The spell boards are optional. If you're just working your regular attraction spell, you can do it completely mentally without doing this. But if you want to add this, it's a lot of fun, and I find that it really enhances things and it really speeds up my results. Now, the goals and essay from your first week should be revisited periodically. You don't need to review them daily, but a regular check-in is a good idea. Keeping everything organized helps you to notice changes and make updates as needed. Take some time each week to rewrite and keep things current, or at least once a month. Writing has as much power as visualizing does. If you just write and set aside without revising, you're missing out on its full potential. The written word is very powerful, so you want to keep all of your sacred documents like this updated. Think of them as living documents that are meant to be revised and reworked. You don't want to overload yourself with a bunch of work, but you also don't want to neglect it either. You have to find a balance, recognizing that this process works and helps you to achieve happiness and success in your goals. This approach also contributes to your spiritual growth. Some people think that they must choose between spiritual growth and getting what they want in the world. However, with magic, achieving your desires can lead to spiritual growth. In the way we practice the craft, it only works if you grow. And that's why we do things like the mirror work and practice forgiveness. These actions clear the way so that you can achieve what you want. It's not practical magic separate from spiritual growth. It's all interconnected. One thing I forgot to mention, with your spell board, you don't want it to be cluttered with a bunch of stuff. More is not better. You don't want your spell board to be too cluttered because then you get cluttered results. You want to keep it clear and succinct and very clean so that when you look at it, you notice within that border, this is what I'm getting. This is what I'm manifesting. Your spells always need room to breathe. The same applies to your altar. You don't want it just brimming over with a bunch of stuff. You want your altar to be a statement. You want your spell to be a statement to your deep mind. And you want everything that you need to make that statement on the altar or on the spell board or both, and nothing more. It's good to have enough on there so that your statement is complete, but a lot of times people think more is better, and then they wonder why their spells are maybe not as effective, or when they do manifest, they're very cluttered. You want to make your spell board colorful, and you want to make your altar colorful. On your spell board, if you just used pencil and white paper with a stick figure, you'll get results, but they might be dull results. Aim for colorful, exciting, fantastic outcomes. Use color on your spell board, use color on your altar, and use color everywhere in your spells and in your life. Let your life be colorful. Whether you're working on a spell or not, incorporate planetary colors mindfully into your life. We talked about that in A Witch's Primer. You can incorporate them into your wardrobe. If you need more Mercury energy, then you would wear some Mercury colors. If you need more Jupiter energy, you could wear more Jupiter colors. If you need Saturn's energy, wear Saturn's colors. Notice how wearing those planetary colors helps you to focus on the planetary influence that you are working with. Next week, we're going to dive even deeper into spells, believe it or not, and there's a lot to cover, and we're just barely scratching the surface here. We'll have more in this course, and then we'll have even more in the advanced course. It's hard to believe that we're past the halfway mark with this class. It seems like we just started, but it's only 2 more classes after today, and we'll soon be done with this intermediate course, and I sure hope that you're enjoying it. This week, I also want you to practice writing an incantation. It's so important to get used to crafting your own incantations rather than looking them up. Not that you can't use other people's chants and other people's incantations, of course you can. But there's something very powerful about writing an incantation. They don't need to rhyme. They don't need to have a rhythm. They can be prose. They can be pure affirmations. However, in magic, there is a saying that spells done in rhyme work 9 times 9, which is an imperfect rhyme. And imperfect rhymes are fine in magic. For your incantations, you can just use online rhyming dictionaries and thesauruses. You can buy the hard copies as well. For now, your spells will work best in your own native language. While certain languages might be suitable for some operations, and we have examples of that all over Ariel's Corner of when that sometimes is appropriate. But that's not our focus in this course, and it's definitely not our focus this week. So you don't need to worry about Sanskrit mantras or ancient Druid prayers spoken in Gaelic. Stick to what's natural for you here and now. You also don't have to use Hebrew names. You don't have to chant in Latin. Just use your native tongue in both speaking and in writing, other than the Theban script. But remember, the Theban script is a cipher of your native language. It's a cipher script of your native language. In your handout, I've included some sample incantations, and they're not perfect. They're just, I have tons of them. I've got books of these that I've written over the years, but they do show several different rhythmic and rhyming structures that are typical in spells. For example, here's one for perfect health. Perfect health's my sacred right. Health is mine both day and night. My thoughts and actions make for me vibrant health in my body. Every cell is bathed in light, all systems in my body right. My health increasingly robust. This healing power I can trust. It's not Shakespeare, but it works. It gets right into the deep mind. Now, this isn't a replacement for your detailed listing of the qualities and essences you're looking for when we're working on your spell. It's just a concise little ditty to help focus once you have done the work on defining your spell and defining the essences and all of that. And then you're encapsulating it with a little rhyming spell. It's not like the movies where they make it seem like your incantations work instantly. Do it once and then everything just changes. And in real life, that's not how it works. Often it requires some repeated chanting over a period of time for your spell to take effect. I recommend that you try to do your best to chant out loud when possible and use the chant in your daily life. If you feel doubt or fear or anxiety about the situation that you've done the spell, rather than pretend like you don't feel those things, use the chant to dissolve those feelings in your mind right away. And again, don't worry if it's not great poetry. Most of us write our own spells and we aren't great poets. And they don't need to win any awards. They are effective no matter what. And by the way, a talented gifted artist or a talented gifted poet won't necessarily be more effective magically because of those skills than if you don't have those skills. Just you doing your best at it, you're working magic, not poetry. You're working magic, not art. You're just incorporating the poetry and art as tools to key things into your mind. Here's another rhythmic structure that I use for general incantations and to turn situations around. All is well with me. All is working out. My highest good now manifests in all my life throughout. From this situation, only good times 3 now appears in every way so perfectly for me. You can just commit something like that to memory and put it on a loop when facing a difficult situation, chanting it over and over again. And of course, you could just chant an affirmation. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can't do the rhyming right away or you don't want to think of it, then just use an affirmation. Here's one for financial increase. It's a different rhythm. I give thanks that I am rich and well and happy too. My affairs are now aligned with all that's good and true. Financial wealth and riches grow, increasing every day. All my wealth and fortune bring only good my way. Or for love and romance, I draw love and romance in. My perfect mate arrives. I accept the love we have, enriching both our lives. I deserve the love, romance, and all the joyful bliss, the passion of each day and night aroused by true love's kiss. So you can use these incantations as part of your spell. Spend some time in the candlelight reading your incantations if you haven't memorized them yet. Let the attraction work flow through you. And even if you don't repeat the cone of power every day as part of this, you can follow up with these tools. You can chant it over your spell board repeatedly. The rhythm and the rhyme, along with those images, help those things to sink deeply into your deep mind and help to fertilize the soil from the seed that you've implanted in your spell work. Keep this process going throughout the waxing moon or just until you feel it's enough, and you'll get a sense when it's time to put the spell board away or when it's time to stop doing your daily incantations. It's okay if your incantations are only a couple of lines as long as they are complete enough. Personally, I prefer them to be a little bit longer, usually 1 or 2 full stanzas of 4 lines each, because for me, otherwise it doesn't feel complete enough. But everybody's different, and you need to find your own way. You have to experiment and really find what works for you. Some of my incantations go on for pages and pages if I'm working on something really involved, and I'll either commit them to memory and repeat them repeatedly, or I sometimes record them on a cassette or something like that and listen to them as I'm not a cassette. I can record them. Listen to me, cassette. Do you even know what a cassette is? I just showed you how old I am. Yeah, that cassette. Remember that cassette player that everybody has in their boom box? I can even record them as MP3 and play them as I'm relaxing. You can repeat them as you're going to sleep at night. As long as you're getting effective results, though, your approach works. Results are your proof. It doesn't matter what the theories are. It doesn't matter what the practices are. If they're working for you, then they're right. If they're not working for you, you're either not working them correctly or they're not good tools for you right now, and you might want to put them away and come back to them another time. But you do want to give your tools long enough of a practice so that you can ascertain whether they're working or not most accurately. So I always say, if you're trying a new technique, give it a couple, 2 or 3 months, really, to be fair to the technique, because some techniques take some time to practice. But ultimately, what works is what works, and that's what you want to stick with. I know this one person and several others like her. Her life is in constant chaos. She's always trying to make ends meet. She's always perpetually 3 steps behind everything. She's always spinning her wheels, and nothing ever works for her. She's deeply involved in magic. She attends classes and reads tons of books, goes to different meetings, is on all these different witch boards, but I don't think she really does anything with it. I think she collects magical stuff, she collects magical information, she collects magical tools, collects magical books, and can quote all kinds of great theory. She probably has 17 different systems in her head at all times, but never really puts any of it to work. Now, I don't know if she believes in herself or not, but she appears to be very undisciplined. And people often assume, like her, that more is better. more information is better. They think that nothing's working for them because they don't know enough and they haven't learned enough information. So they keep collecting more data and trying new systems without ever focusing on one, without ever really disciplining themselves to stay the course for enough time to really prove a system to themselves. And the problem with this is that different systems can have very opposing techniques that don't work well together. They work fine on their own, but they don't necessarily work together. It's like using two different elements for directions or two different correspondences for the same planet. There's no cohesion there. And it makes it really hard to synthesize into a working practice because there's so many different disparate pieces of information with no actual training, even though each of those systems on its own can be quite powerful. But as a melting pot, it doesn't work so well, at least not for her and not for most people that I know that do that. My recommendation to her was the same that I would give to all of you, and that is to find a system that you enjoy and that seems to probably work and stick with it for a while before you start mixing and matching a bunch of stuff. Let yourself just pare down and find one thing and work it for a while. Don't just keep buying more books and buying more tools and going online and asking for more of this and more of that. You're never going to get better at magic by doing that. In fact, you're going to delay your success by doing that. Hoarding information is not the same as working magic. Some of the most effective practitioners of magic I have ever met are actually unfamiliar with the bulk of the Western occult tradition. They only know what they've been taught and what their circle or their teachers have shown them. They don't really bother diving into extensive theories and history and all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Knowing all that information is wonderful. I love it too, but it doesn't necessarily make you a better magician. If it did, then all the magic enthusiasts out there would be the very best. But that's not usually the case. They can talk a good line, but when it comes down to it, they can't seem to make their spells work. Typically, it's the people who either don't bother learning everything, but focus their minds on one system at a time, who tend to achieve the best results. One system isn't inherently better than another. I've seen people excel using various traditions, and they all operate very differently, and each will provide their own results in their own way. But jumping from system to system is never a smart idea, especially not at first. I don't want to learn every system. It's just too much information. I'm going to focus on what works for me. And I hope that's what you want to do as well. I'm not suggesting that you exclusively use the system I'm teaching you. I mean, I don't have anything for you to join anyway. This is just a standalone class. But I do want you to find what works for you and stick with it for a while. And that's why when I do courses like this, they are a set amount of weeks. So try this for 6 weeks and see how it works. And if you get some results, then try it for another 6 weeks, maybe another one, and see. This week's homework: continue to work daily with the 3 meditations, the morning, the evening, and the orb of light. And feel free to either work with the recordings or on your own. This week, also experiment with the extra meditations if you desire. There's 2. One of them is called Connecting with Your Desire, and the other one is called Receiving Your Desire. And you can do those at least once in conjunction with the spell that you're working on, the attraction spell. They are optional. Don't feel like you have to listen to them, but they are very brief. Continue to work on your mirror magic daily. Experiment working with your given name, not your craft name, for a while, just because you want to heal that part of yourself. And then you can work with both your given name and your craft name, little by little, as you're working with this. So you, Susan, are a powerful, beautiful person, and you deserve to have all that you desire. I love you, and I approve of you right now exactly as you are. Now, I know some people feel a little silly when they're doing that. They think of that old Stuart Smalley character in Saturday Night Live. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. But that's okay. it's okay for you to feel that way. This reaction is not uncommon. Remember, the mirror is a portal into another world, and that's why I want you to use it in a dimly lit room with candles or soft lighting. It's really about looking at your deep mind and how you exist in another world. I encourage you to speak in the second person, not in the first person, because you are talking directly to your deep mind. It's a good idea to work with calling yourself by the name that you were called as a child, since the deep mind often identifies with what was established in those first 4 to 5 years of your life. And you can introduce your magical name over time. When you have the mirror in front of you, you might notice that your face starts to change and look different. It can look like an old person, a baby, a goddess, a god, or even change race or gender. And that's fine, because your deep mind is connected to the universal mind. Over time, you can use this mirror for more than just finding your personal power. You can access other people, other lifetimes, other dimensions, gods, goddesses, spirits, angels, etc. However, I don't recommend doing that at first because it requires preparing your mirror a little differently, and you can find out more about that in the basic angel magic course. For now, you're safely doing this exercise just in that semi-trance state, telling your deep mind what you want it to know, that you are a beautiful, powerful person who deserves everything you desire. The more you affirm this, the more your deep mind will work to make sure that those things happen for you. If you don't do this kind of deep work regularly, especially in the first couple of years of practicing magic, your results tend to be more unpredictable. For example, if you cast a spell to pay off your debts, but you have conflicting beliefs about deserving that, you might experience very mixed outcomes and not get those debts paid, or you get more debts as soon as they do get paid. By doing this work, your deep mind aligns more with who you truly are rather than outdated roles that you chose many years ago. We're not speaking in the first person, remember, but the second person. We're not addressing our personalities. We're speaking to our deep minds and the part that performs the magic, the part that makes change happen. This is powerful, magical work, and you're really working with that magical child within you. And that initial embarrassment and laughter are profound because they indicate resistance that you're overcoming. My recommendation is to acknowledge this reaction when it occurs. It's not a sign of doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're doing something right and breaking through barriers in a gentle and loving and peaceful way. If it feels silly, laugh. It's perfectly fine to laugh during magical work. In fact, laughter isn't disrespectful. It is a sign of success. That's why that image of the cackling witch exists. Witches tend to have a good time and laugh during their magic. If you start laughing, take it as a sign that what you are working on is happening. This is going to be a really good week for you, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Keep working on your magical diary. Maybe give those spell boards a look at. Work with those incantations and those extra meditations if you desire. And all of this is in your handout of your homework for this week. So have a great week, and we will see you next time. Until next time, blessed be.